Hi, I'm Lindy Witten. I'm back again for the third part of this little acrylic painting where I'm going to be putting in the colour, local colour and maybe some additional colours that I've just made up. And it's going to be going over at the top of this mediums, the acrylic mediums I've put on. I use some of the tar gel in a stringy kind of way here for the bushes, and a little bit of moulding paste there to get a bit of extra texture on the ground. So let's get into it. I'm going to start the painting now. So we're starting in the sky. I'm going to use a little bit of matte gel. So this is the matte gel. It just comes out onto my palette and I'll be mixing it in with the paint. Just helps give it a little bit more body. Here's the matte gel. I'm going to mix up a bit of a sky colour, a little bit of cerulean, a bit of the matte gel here, a bit of white. And then I'm going to put a touch of phthalo blue in there. Phthalo blue really brightens up the sky. So the sky is going to go in. I'm happy for that yellow to show through a bit, especially down here on the horizon where it meets the mountain there. So that's just going in. I didn't mix it up too much because there's some swirling clouds there, some little wispy clouds, so I'm going in with the white paint straight into that blue, and that kind of just mixes it on the paper, on the canvas, and the yellow is just showing through a bit, which is giving it a nice warm feel to the sky. And I'm quite happy for that to show through a bit. So I'm not going to cover it all up. I'm going to leave some of those brush marks showing. I do want the lower part of the sky to be a little bit lighter than it is. It's too... It was just a little bit too dark, because your sky is lighter at the horizon and gets brighter, bluer as it goes up. Here, there's a lot of cloud in there, so it's not really going to get too blue as it goes up, because the light cloud is over the sky as well. So for the hills there, I'm just mixing a bit of ultramarine blue in with the remnants of the sky colour to help tie it into the sky there. Picking it up on the side of my palette knife and then just doing a bit of this scraping down. I don't really mind if it's not perfect. They're quite peaky, as I said before, quite sharp peaks because it's a volcanic area. And I'm just suggesting the shapes with the edge of my palette knife. And then we're coming up into the foothills of the mountain there. I'd like to tell you what mountain it is, but I've forgotten. My husband would know because he's very good with geography. I'm quite bad. I remember things like, oh, that's where we had a picnic beside the road, or that's where we had that bit of a disturbed discussion about what we were going to do next, or that's where I took that great photo. I'm not so good at remembering the actual names of places. So you can see the hills are starting to come to life there, and I'm going to let some of that yellow background show through as well. I might go in with a little bit of a brush to put a couple of little bits in there, just on the top of the mountain. So I'll get out my small brush, just dip it into that blue that I've mixed up, gathering a little bit, and then I'm just going to put a few little bits of the darker mountain showing through in places there, and model the snow slightly just by pulling that brush up and down into it. I'm trying to keep it reasonably like the image of the mountain without going too overboard. So I am referring back to my reference here just to see that I've got the main geological features where they should be. That one should go up there a bit more. And then I'll just mix a little bit of the whiter snow in there as we come down. Just need to make that a little less flat there, and that a little steeper. And then I think I'm satisfied that I've got the general shape of that mountain in fairly quickly. What's coming next is this area through here, and that's going to be nice and warm, so I'll clean off my palette knife and I'm going to go in for a mix of warmer colours, so my warmer end of the palette there, and I'm going to take some warm siennas, a bit of that modelling, not modelling gel, a bit of that matte gel. It just helps to extend your paint a little bit. You don't use quite so much paint. I'm also mixing at this stage a little bit of yellow ochre, which I'm just dabbing into it, and a touch of Naples yellow, which I'm just dabbing into it, a bit of Indian red. So they're all just getting dabbed together. You can see I haven't mixed them right up, and then I'm just going to pull them across there, and you can see how they're just going to mix naturally as I pull them onto the canvas with my palette knife. I'm pulling them down because it's got a little bit of slope on it. Then I go back in and I mix a bit more with different proportions of those colours. So I'm having less of the reds, the siennas, and more of the yellows and ochres. Now give it another pull down. When it gets to this line, it starts to flatten out, so I'll be changing proportions again in there. I want it to have a slight pinkness to it, so I'm putting in a touch of alizarin crimson into a fair amount of yellow Naples yellow, so that starts to pull down into there. I could do with this with a brush as well. There's no problem with doing that, so I'm going to grab out my brush, some of the matte gel, and I'll mix it into that paint, picking up and mixing as I go, but not totally mixing, and just pulling it down. You can see I'm letting the matte gel helps the brushes to brush strokes to show as well, so I'm just pulling it down as I go, and it will flatten out there. And I want it to be very Naples pink, Naples yellow with a bit of pink into it, and a big slather of the matte gel, and then across it goes there, and that's going to have a little sit up, so I'm just dabbing it on with my brush like so and pulling down, whereas that was the diagonal strokes. These are up and down strokes, some vertical strokes going on there, just to establish that plane there. You can see I'm getting a nice variation in the colours in there. Warmer, darker, down into a paler, pinkery sort of one, and that will come down around the bush like so. I'm just putting in a little bit behind it, and I'll be going back to pull out the colours of that bush. I don't mind that some of the darker underpainting is showing through, that's fine. It's got a nice glow up there against the sky, against the mountains there. What I want to do is put a little bit more bluey greens back in here. So I've just used some of the colour I had from the mountain and added a little bit of that yellow. And that's just to green off this area slightly so it comes a little bit further forward than the rest of those hills, because it's a little bit further forward. And just greening it off slightly, greening the blue off, will allow me to do that. With a slight curve, and I'm putting that in again with a little bit of a lighter colour there, just to grab the skyline. And then I'll go back in, darken it up with some of my red Naples, my transparent red oxide is what I'm darkening it up with, and pull that down through. And I like it when I get some little random patches of it. So I don't want it to be totally mixed, I want it to have a few little suggestions of variations in there, which will be bits of shrubs and so on. So there's the line there where the grasses merge with the hilltops, and I can put in that little house, little building, and then some of the shrubs along here. Now it's time to work on this side. I'm going to do that before I put them in because I've got the colour mixed up, so I'm just going to go in now with a bit more of the matte medium. I'm just picking up some of those colours randomly and starting to go a bit more like so. I want a bit more red in there, so I'm just pulling up some alizarin crimson from here and mixing into what I've got and letting that mix in for these redder bits of sorrel and so on that are there. And as I'm putting it on, you can see how the tar gel that I put in earlier is showing through, and that's good. I'm going to do a bit of scraping back in a minute and then we'll see that pattern a bit more. So this is all just going in through this area and then some more down through this area, and letting quite a lot of the underpainting yellow show through, not getting really fussed about that. And putting it on in little jabby kind of motions like so. Adding a little bit of it out here, just a little, not too much. And you can see that that's starting to come along. This area hasn't got anything in yet, so I'm going to be putting in, tone it down slightly and fill in that area. Not with quite such big strokes, shorter strokes coming in here, because we're getting further away and you won't see so much of the variation in the heights of the grasses. I'm just putting some over here to get a little bit of different colour in behind that. Now we're going to work some more colours in there. I'm going to take a little bit of a purple look to it, so I'm going to take out a bit more of the red and take a little bit of ultramarine blue and mix up a purpley kind of shade that's going to start to go in there as well to give it some depth. I'm going to pull that out to the corner because I don't want my eye to be too interested and attracted to the corner, so I'm just going to make it slightly darker and with less detail than the rest of the areas. Same with that corner, I'm putting in just a bit of that darker, more purple mix that I've mixed up. A little bit more of it. And I'll bring it in, so I've got a little bit here, and in here, in the base of that bush, I want it to be quite dark, and there'll be a few more areas where it's a little bit darker at the bases of some of these shrubs, so just putting a little bit of that darker purpley kind of colour in there. I'm just using a fairly dry brush and scrubbing it around to get that sense of mixed wildflowers. There were lots of different wildflowers there. It was really, really beautiful. So I just want to get that sense of a lot of different textures and colours going on. What I want to do now is mix up a sagey kind of green. So I've got the cerulean blue from the sky and the yellow ochre from the grass, and I'm just mixing those together. And it's not too bad. I'm going to take a bit of white and add in there as well, just to tone it down a bit and make it a bit more tinty. That is pretty good, and that's for the sage bush here. And I'm just taking it with my knife and scraping it over, so I get kind of random edges. And it's scraping over that tar gel that I put on, and you can see it makes it gives it some sense of little sticky bits going underneath there. I'm going to pull it a little bit further out this way to make a better shape, and maybe a little bit taller there. Making more of that colour, the cobalt blue, the yellow ochre, mix them together. And I wanted a darker one, so this time I'm not going to tone it off with, tint it off with the white. I am going to put in some of the matte gel, give it a little bit more body and make it go on better. And then I'm going to put in some of the darker bits, and you can see how it's contrasting nicely with those. We're going to go more into the base of it. A little bit more over here to anchor it. There's another bush shrubby thing down here, so that's getting a bit of a go of that as well. And I'll put some of it over here, and on some of these ones now that are tumbling down the hill, I'm pulling a bit of that colour into it. And a few more little ones over here. I'm just patting them on with the knife to create a sense that there is some shrubs. Some shrubs growing along the edge there that it needs. I'm going to make those darker, but at the moment that's the colour they are. Now I want to lighten this off again, so I'm putting more white into it. So just in that area I'm adding some white so that I can, and that's even lighter than my first go was. Pulling it down, and I want to put that on the tops of some of these ones as well. On this one. There's also these little thistly kind of things that are a nice sagey kind of colour too, and I'm just scratching those on like so. Into all that other vegetation, just putting on some and then scratching it with the knife. And I can go back and do some more careful ones if I want to with a brush, but right now it's just adding in a bit of that greeny grey, a little bit more white going into it. Just adding a bit of the green greys around. And if I pull it down over all of this, where I put the tar gel, and then scrape, cover it entirely with a mix of those sagey colours and the other colours that I've got. Just making a bit of a mix there, pulling it down all over that area where I've got the tar gel. Some bits that are darker. Adding a little bit of the red in there for a more purpley kind of look at the basis of some of these things. And you can see I'm just scrabbling it in with picking it up on the knife and then just rubbing it in. And it's quite effective at making a very textured and interesting area there. I'm just letting it sort it out itself, not really worrying too much exactly what the colour is, but rather just getting in a mixture all over this area. And not mixing them up too cleanly. I want them to just blend as they go on. In a very random way. I'm going to mix slightly more of that sage colour. It's going to come up here. So that there's a bit of lightness amongst the darker bits there. And a few bits there. I can add a little bit of that, really light, onto that one. I want to get it really dark down in there now, so I'm going for a purple, which I'm just mixing myself out of the alizarin, crimson, and the ultramarine blue. Giving them a mix up and making a very deep, dark, reddy purple. You can see how dark it is there. I'm just scrabbling it over there, pulling it down, and then scraping back a bit. Gives a kind of feeling of the branches and the sticks on that one. Really darkening it up in there. At this stage, if I wanted to, I could go on with a brush, but I'm quite enjoying the palette knife, so I'll just, while I'm enjoying it, I'll just keep using that. A little darkness into the base there and down there. Again along the horizon there. And just putting that into the still wet mixture of those shrubs up there to give us a little bit of a dark bit of contrast on the horizon where the plain, the light plain, comes up to the foothills. Not sure that I want that grey there, so I'll probably go back and get rid of it. It was a bit of a mistake. Sometimes you make a bit of a mistake and then you have to go in and correct it, and fortunately it's very easy in acrylics to do that. So I'm just going in here and putting a little bit more variation down there. A little few bits of scrabbly stuff coming through there. So that's starting to take shape. I'm asking myself a few questions now about am I happy with it, and I think really the darker blue should come up a little bit higher there, so I'll be going back and fixing that up. I need to put that little building in back there. I don't want to put the roof of it on in red, in white, it'll be too stark, so I'm just going to blue it off a touch. So it's a little bit of white I'll be using with some blue into it, and then it's just going to make the little roof of a building there. You can see that building, it's just the vaguest idea of a building. And then underneath it there'll be a little touch of something dark to suggest a wall, but not too dark. So I'm just coming with a brush to put in that wall, maybe slightly darker than that. Put in that little roof. So that's my building on the I keep calling it the horizon, and I guess it is. It's where the eye level is. I'm putting a tiny touch of white there, but then tone it down slightly because I don't want it to be too bright. But I do want our eye to be slightly drawn to that. Okay, so I've got my little house in on there. I've got more work to do down here. There's a lot of flowers going on in there, and I'm going to be putting those in, and there are more things going on there. So putting a few of those more spiky things in by just taking a little bit of the paint on the tip of my palette knife, like so, and then just pulling it and letting it mix with what was underneath as well. I'm going to pull a few of them up through here. That's just so we get a random effect. When viewed from a distance, it's going to look like a lot of different shrubs are working together there. First, I'm just going to put a little bit more texture in using an old house paintbrush that's pretty munted, and a little mix of paint there. Just dip it in, and just tap it on there. That'll give me a slightly different texture than the other ones that I was doing, and I'm just going to tap that in a few spots where I want a little bit of contrast between the reds and the purples and the greens. So that's going in there, just to help add even more texture. And the tap 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 motion just deposits that in an uneven way that helps to make it quite random. And if I then go over some of the other bits I've got in as well, it helps to mix with that as well and creates even more colours that I didn't have before by overlapping. So that's my plan here, just get it all with suggestions of plants and different sorts of plants, the sagebrushy kind of ones. And then taller ones as well. And then I'm going to do a little bit of flicking. Now I've just loaded this brush with some paint. Not too wet, not too dry. And I'm taking another brush, just smacking it with it. And that will just leave little taps. More. One way that often works well is to lay it flat to do this part. You can see here I'm getting some nice contrast. A bit of trial and error to see how it's going. But I need to start putting a bit of colour in. I mean, I have got colour, but some brighter colours for the flowers. And that there are some brighter flowers there. There's some pinks and some yellows. And I'm going to put some of those in. And I can just take my paint and grab a little bit of this very bright yellow, which I am going to knock back slightly with a little bit of orange, because I'm finding it too yellow against all this. And I'm going to just dab in some flowers. just with a little round brush. And because I've mixed up the orange with the yellow, like so, orange and yellow together, but not too much, I'm getting little highlights and lowlights, if you like, on that. I'm going to take a little bit of that and dab a couple of other little spots, just with really tiny ones, so that it carries through. I might even put a few of them back, just a suggestion, a tiny little suggestion back here, of a little patch of them. I'll just blur it off with my finger there a little bit, so it's a brighter patch amongst it. This will help us to get this effect of creating a pathway through. The yellows will take me into the bush and back around and up through there. I might even put a touch of this. No, I just don't think I'll go overboard with it. Sometimes you can go overboard and then you ruin it. I'm taking a little bit of just the straight yellow now. I'm putting a couple of those cooler patches in there. Some pink flowers I want to put in. There were some beautiful pink flowers there, and I'm just picking up a little bit of alizarin and mixing it with a little bit of white there to try and get the pink I want. It's quite light, so that'll mix up a nice light pink, and that's just going to go in back in here. It's very nice against that sagey blue. Few scatterings of it around all over the place. So I could use one tapping technique for this as well. Tapping it off, it makes quite nice little random smatterings of pink there. And just a tiny different shade. And I'm creating a lovely textural effect there. I want to pop in some more of those sagey things there. They were thistly kind of things, and I'm just going to pop them in with a brush. Pull it down through the other vegetation. And they're quite light against the underpainting there, so they help tie the whole thing together. I did want to go back in there and make that a little bit more, a little bit higher up, so I'll do that with a palette knife. I'm going to mix up some of the ultramarine blue over here with a little bit of the cobalt, the cerulean that I used in the sky, and a tiny touch of white. So I don't want it quite that dark. And then I'm just going to take my palette knife again and just make that come slightly further up there. I think that's a bit better. Now, I you can see I'm just running the palette knife over there, and the texture of the canvas and what I've got on there underneath is helping me to create a few more little marks on that mountain, which I think are helping it. And I just want to change the blue there, cool it off a little bit more, because ultramarine blue is a kind of warm blue, so I'm just cooling it off a little bit by using a bit more of the cobalt, of the cerulean. Putting it on in a few patches. So I've managed to make quite a lot of really interesting foliage in the foreground. I've got a really good delineation between the background hills and the foreground here. I might want to up this tree, this shrub a bit. We'll see about that later on. But now I just want it all to sit, to rest, and for me to take my eyes away and come back later and have a refreshed look at it. So I'll see you in the next part where we'll review it and add the finishing details. Okay, bye for now.